once again exploring up close. I'm in downtown Spartanburg right now in what we call Morgan Square. Bell tower in the background. I thought we'd get more of a song out of it than that. Anyway, Morgan Square, named for the hero of Cowpens, Daniel Morgan. Spartanburg is home to one of the most unique statues in the United States, and it's the one behind me. Up on the pedestal is Daniel Morgan himself, sculpted by a guy whose name was John Quincy Adams Ward. I'll tell you more about him in just a second. But why is this statue here instead of out on the Cowpens battlefield? The answer is easy. This was put up in 1881, and the only transportation from Spartanburg and many other corners to the Cowpens battlefield was by foot or by horse. And so this statue was erected at the closest place on the railroad to the actual battlefield. 1881. It's unique for another reason too. We'll read some of the inscriptions in just a minute, but in 1881, this was the first monument that was put up after the Civil War to the glory of the nation as a whole. It was 100 years after the Battle of Cowpens, about 16 years after the Civil War, and it was therefore seen as a great opportunity to try to bind recent wounds and to kind of draw on the past of union and strength that had existed in the era of the Great Revolution. I'm getting up close and personal with the memorial here, but I want to be able to read this to you. So this is one of the engravings on one side of the monument, again erected in 1881, not long after the Civil War. It says, 1781, one people, no north, no south, no east, no west, a common interest, one country, one destiny. 1881. As it was, so ever let it be. Statue of Daniel Morgan here in Morgan Square in Spartanburg. Again, this was sculpted by a guy who was named after one of our presidents, John Quincy Adams Ward. Quite a famous sculptor, did lots of monumental figures in American history. I'm going to name two that you may have run across before. In South Carolina, about 3 years before he sculpted this, he did a famous sculpture that stands down in Charleston in an area most of us simply call the Battery. It's actually White Point Gardens, the beautiful garden in what's called the South Battery area of Charleston. William Gilmore Simms, one of the foremost literature figures in the first half of the 19th century in America, is there in the garden. So that was built in, that was done by Ward in 1878. The year after this was sculpted, 1 year later, 1882, at the nation's first capitol, which was Federal Hall in New York City, on Wall Street, the monumental sculpture of George Washington went up. So those are two quite famous ones you may have come across before, but the same sculpture is responsible for this one of Daniel Morgan here in Spartanburg.